right. Thank you for joining us for part one of our new practitioner financial literacy series. This series is designed for the new podiatrist and was coordinated by our new practitioner peer group. Today's session is all about managing student loans as a new podiatrist. And our speakers are Matt and Jon, both with Principal Financial, and I'll just go ahead and turn it directly over to them.
Thanks, Emma, and thank you for the group for inviting us to present. Just wanted to give you guys some quick background on Matt and I. We are both certified financial planners, which essentially means we have a master's degree in giving financial advice and makes us fiduciaries to our clients. We both have very strong medical backgrounds. My wife is a '08 graduate of Des Moines University in the DO program. She is currently in family practice, and Matt's wife is a graduate of the PA program from DMU. We focus our practice on working with medical professionals, surgeons, podiatrists, family practice docs, ER docs, essentially anybody in medicine. So a lot of the information that we're going to present on today is collected from our 30 years of experience working with individuals, helping them plan for a number of things. Today, we're specifically going to be talking about debt and particularly student loans. So feel free to use us as a contact. I'm sure Emma or your group is going to pass our contact information. If you have one-off questions you want to ask, feel free to do so. But as she mentioned today, we're really going to talk a lot about student loan repayment options and managing debt in general. So I'm going to kick things off with just some general good FYI information on tackling debt, and Matt's going to jump into the student loans. So the first thing we want to talk about is really living expense, particularly, understanding that this group is in your first 10 years of practice. Most of the medical professionals we work with, had a long glide path to get into employment. They had undergraduate school, medical school, and then a lot of them had a residency program. So it's interesting to kind of see people work through that, kind of being a college student for a longer duration than most, that once you get those paychecks, it's really, hey, I want to be an adult. I want to buy a home. I want to furnish a home. I want a new car. I want to start behaving like my income is where it's at. And what the biggest piece of advice we can give is really start working on your financial plan. You had a plan to get through your education, and now that that's over, you need to really start planning for the income you're going to have. The average American, some startling facts here, spends more time planning their summer vacation than they do their finances. So the biggest piece of advice we can give you is really start to look at your expenses. Take a close look at what you're spending every month. What is your mortgage payment? What are your student loan payments? What's your car payment? What's your credit card debt look like? And track all those expenses for 30, 60, 90 days to really get a look at what they are, and particularly on what we call discretionary expenses. So that's things in my household, like my wife loves purses. Are you buying a purse this month? Are we taking a vacation? Are we going out to eat a bunch? What are we spending on fuel, cell phones, etc.? One third bullet point there that I really like that's really helpful for a lot of my clients is using cash versus credit cards. So that's something that you can keep in mind. We're kind of in a universe where everything's done digitally, but using cash really helps you focus on your spending. So good tip there. So let's talk generally about budget allocations for households. Okay, this is data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it essentially lays out what most budget allocations look like. So most people spend 33% on their housing, 12% on food, 16% on transportation, 5% on entertainment, and 12% to savings. So this is the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics data that we've collected. The next slide we're going to show you is what we'd recommend. Okay, so we would recommend not spending more than 20 to 25% of your income on your housing. That's mortgage, rent, whatever housing expenses you have. The food consumption's been up a little bit with inflation. That runs 10 to 15%. We would allocate another 10 to 15% for transportation, 5 to 10% of your disposable income to entertainment, and really encourage people to bump up their savings, both through retirement planning and personal, like emergency funding, to 15 or 20% of your income. The next thing we're going to talk about before Matt gets into the student loans is setting effective goals. Again, you had to set a lot of goals to get where you're at. You know, you worked your tails off to get out into practice, to get this rich benefit and income. You know, what are you doing to set goals to pay off your debt, to pay off your student loans, to make your mortgage more palatable, or get rid of credit card debt? You know, goal setting is the same as to whatever you apply it to. So, you know, make realistic and measurable goals, set obtainable deadlines, break your goals into bite-sized pieces. You know, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and most of the medical professionals we work with have $250,000 to $500,000 of student loan debt. And you're not going to get that paid off in 1 year. You need to have a game plan to systematize your repayment strategy and get that paid off. One thing, the last bullet point here, that I think oftentimes gets missed is rewards. You know, my wife and I were able to pay off her student loans in about 6.5 years. We had a goal that when we got those student loans paid off, we were going to go on a very nice vacation, and we did so. So the human animal works. We're the only animal or species out there that has the ability to think into the future, and using some rewards as you pay some of these things off, or you get your arms around your finances, are important. So I would encourage you to think about that. If you hit these goals, what and how are you going to reward yourself? Being a smart consumer, that's the next thing we're going to talk about. As Matt talks about the student loans, there's a lot of companies out there that want your business. There's individual banks, there's debt consolidators, the federal government. They all want you to run your student loans through these various organizations. So be a smart consumer, shop around. If you're looking to purchase a house, have you talked to multiple mortgage brokers, or have you just stuck with somebody you know? You know, it might be a little uncomfortable to go out and build relationships, but having a personal banker, having a financial advisor, having a mortgage broker are all important things for the medical profession. So shop around on those. You know, dining out less is an easy fix. You know, Starbucks coffee is not cheap. It's a heck of a luxury, but if you don't have a game plan for your finances, you will consume more. So look to resist impulse buying. You know, think before you buy. It's my rule of thumb, and what I tell clients: any purchase over $5,000, you should sleep on. You know, make sure it's something you want. It's not just an impulse. Take a look at your phone and cable bill. The bigger things now are the automated services. You know, we sit with clients all the time that have 3 or 4 Netflix accounts that was unbeknownst to them, just based on kind of, hey, I'm busy, I'm a student, or in residency, I don't have time to look at this, and they just sign up for things. Budget for your holidays, pay as you go, some additional strategies there. Setting savings goals. This is the big one. You should have short and long-term goals. Okay, short-term goals could be things like vacation, gifts or holidays, purchasing a car, purchasing a house, appliances, paying off your debt, student loans, credit cards, and then your longer-term goals. We all want to retire someday. Most of us aren't in business to work until the day we die. You know, are you setting enough aside for retirement, kids' college education, your dream vacation, second homes, etc.? Biggest thing we can advocate for is save first. You know, before you start doing any significant debt repayment or funding, you need to have at least 6 months worth of your income in an emergency fund. So that is kind of going to be the first thing we talk about. We have recommendations for you. We don't have a ton of time to cover all this, and want to make sure we have most of our time set aside for student loans. But if you're looking for a start on a budget or how to save first, you can certainly reach out to us directly. We're also going to follow with Emma on some handouts that you can use to get started there. And then we'll jump off into how to build your emergency savings. So use automatic payroll to build your emergency savings. The biggest thing I would say is, if you have a savings account that's linked to your checking account, you really don't have a savings account. You have an account that's waiting to be transferred to checking. So you really want to make sure that your savings account is slightly inconvenient to get to. Put money aside from raises, promotions, and bonuses, and then use secure investments. You don't want to be investing in Bitcoin for your emergency reserve. You want to look at CDs, money markets, high yield savings accounts, etc. So with that kind of basic knowledge, again, I'm going to turn over the screen sharing to Matt. Matt, if you want to take over and really jump into the student loan piece, that would be great.
Thanks, Jon. Well said there on the budgeting. And next, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite subject, student loans. Student loans can seem very overwhelming.
I need to have to start sending those because this is driving me crazy.
And it could be that that thing that is just kind of out there on the side that you don't want to think about, you don't want to necessarily act on, but really what we try to coach our clients on is designing that blueprint to get these things tackled that gives you peace of mind. And there's no secret sauce to the best way to go about doing this. Just because student loans, we could spend a day talking about the nuances of it, and the landscape has changed so significantly, even from 2020, with the environment where rates were lower and doing private refinancing looked a lot more attractive at that time. Whereas now there's been some significant enhancements to the federal side, and interest rates are way up here on the private side, where it almost skews it more towards, even if you're not going to participate in something like PSLF, where there are some considerations to be made. So there's no easy answer on the way to develop this plan, because everybody's situation is a little bit different based on their debt load, where they're practicing, income levels, dependents, whether they're married or not. There's a lot of different things to take into consideration. But where I'm going to spend my time today is understanding the different types of student loans, how your interest rates work, repayment options, and then talk about public service loan forgiveness as well. So I'm going to start out by sharing my screen here. And instead of using a PowerPoint that we typically do for the sake of time, I'm just going to take things right off of federalstudentaid.gov. So one thing I will say is that the federal side has gotten a lot better at the administration of this, and trying to evolve the different repayment plans to make it more efficient and effective for people that are going through student or public service loan forgiveness, but also the management of the payment side of it. So to start with, on the foundation of where we start with student loans, is getting organized, really understanding what you have for loans. And the aggregate place that you can go see all of this is on studentaid.gov. So really understanding how many different loans you have, what the interest rates are they subsidized or unsubsidized? Now, most of you being 10 years and out from graduation or from finishing school will likely all have direct loans, which are either going to be those subsidized, unsubsidized, or graduate plus loans. Subsidized just means that interest doesn't accrue while you're in school. And those are usually the ones that we recommend people tackle last, because you don't have a lot of accrued interest on those. And you would rather want to start with the unsubsidized, or potentially the graduate plus loans, because those are typically higher in interest rate. But first, understanding what you owe, and to Jon's point on the budgeting and breaking down how much can I put towards these, or what's going to be the most effective repayment plan for me in my situation. And for everybody, that's a little bit different. But on your dashboard is where you can find all of that information. This is also going to be the website where you do your income-driven repayment plan, and you make the selections there. I would highly recommend that everybody goes through the loan simulator if that's not something you've done before. It's where you plug in all your information, your income, if you're married, if you're single, if you have dependents, and it's going to break out all the different repayment plans and the income-based repayment plans, and give you an idea of the different cost of each repayment option. And depending on whether you're trying to pay them off as fast as you can, you want a plan that is going to pay you the least, or you're going to pay the least amount of interest, or potentially you want the lowest monthly payment. All those options are available to you, but it's important to figure out which is going to be the road that you're going to travel down. So that's where you're going to find all of your student loan information. Next, I'm going to go into the different repayment plans. So the first ones are the fixed repayment plans. These are options that everybody has, whether you're in private practice or you're working for a nonprofit and you're going to go through PSLF. Now, these three would not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. The standard 10-year repayment would, but by the end of that 10 years, you'd have it all paid off. The graduated loan, now this might be a good option for somebody that is in private practice and they're trying to get their business going, where your payments are lower at first, but then they're going to increase usually every 2 years. So this would be maybe that option for my income's a little bit lower right now, but I expect that to grow pretty dramatically in the future. Or, we're wanting to keep the payments a little bit lower right now. Public service loan forgiveness isn't an option. Graduated payments might be the option there. The extended loan forgiveness, this is where you can pick duration, I believe from 10 to 25 years, but it's going to be equal payment throughout. So if you're looking to have a fixed payment, you're not going for any forgiveness, you just want it to be a predictable amount that you've worked in your budget, you're not concerned about having that debt, doesn't keep you up at night, the extended payment may be an option. As far as the income-driven repayments, this is where we've seen the most overhaul over the last couple of years. And they've really made it, I think, a lot less complicated and confusing to figure out which is the best option for you. Formerly, it was called Repay, but I'm sure you've all seen information on this new Save plan. And really, what that is Repay, where they're going to change the formula so your payment will be less. So what I mean by that, sorry for the scrolling here. Actually, it's going to be, well, I lost my spot in that. But what they did is they changed the calculation on the discretionary income, and they lowered that amount. And they're also going to be in July lowering it from 10% of your discretionary income. It will stay that way on grad loans, but it goes down to 5% on undergrad loans. I'm going to show you a different calculator that we have that kind of shows this payment plan versus the others. And Save is going to be the best option for people on an income-based repayment plan, unless their income is over that 400,000 mark. That's where it starts to continue to go up because there isn't a cap on this repayment plan, whereas there is on Pay and the IBR plan. They cap it at the 10-year standard repayment. But unless your income is above that threshold, Save is generally going to be the best option for you. Now, even if you are in private practice and maybe aren't going for PSLF, this may be a better option than that graduated plan. And the key feature of Save is, let's say your payment is, you're right out of school and you get a $0 payment for a year. No interest is going to accrue on you, because any amount that your monthly payment on that plan doesn't cover for your monthly interest, they're going to subsidize 100% and it will not accrue. So where this would come into play is on PSLF, if you're trying to pay the least amount possible, this is likely going to be the best option. But it also doesn't penalize you if you make a switch to private practice 5 years in, because you paid a lower amount, but you didn't have that interest accruing on you, which to me is probably the number one thing. But in addition to that, obviously the lower payment is a nice option. So with an income-based repayment plan, a couple of things that are important to note is you have to recertify this annually. Your loan servicer is going to have that information in there, and you can also go to federalstudentaid.gov for that. But they will be emailing you, giving you notice of this, I think starting at 120 days in advance of needing to do it. But you do this all through FSA. They've made it all electronic, so it's very easy to manage and switch these if it makes sense. The other thing is if you're going for PSLF, the PSLF help tool, that's all done online now. I don't know if some of you have been in this program, but it used to be this paper form that was kind of tedious to fill out. You had to get it signed, get it submitted. It's all done electronically now, which is really nice. And you just have it emailed to the contact at your employer. They electronically sign off on it, and then it will go right to Mohila, and your payment account will get updated. So they have made some nice updates to the administration of this. That is good going forward. Next, I'm going to take you through just to kind of give you an idea on the different repayment plans and options that you have. So I put a hypothetical scenario in here of student loan balance of $231,000, average interest rate 6%, been paying back the loan since 2023, and currently a family size of 1. And then over here is where we can list in. So this person started practice in 2023, 2024 was their first full year of income. And then I have that escalating at 3% a year. This page is going to be very busy, but it's going to give us all the different repayment plans that are available. And column L that I'm going to highlight is that new save plan. So you can see in this situation, you know, it's saving a couple $100 from where it was before. And that interest savings on, you know, if you have $1,000 of interest a month and these payments don't cover that, to know that you don't have to worry about that interest accruing is a really good change that just happened. And in this scenario, what we look at with our clients is, you know, unless you think there's going to be some dramatic increases, you know, let's overlay what your next 10 years of payments are going to be, and then look at your overall debt load. And I'm going to flip to a different spreadsheet here. But this is just broken down in a different fashion where we have 230,000 of student loans. And I'm going to say, what would the payoff amount need to be? What monthly payment would you need to make to have these loans paid off in 10 years? In this scenario, it would be roughly $2,500 using an avalanche strategy where you pay the highest interest loans first. It ends up being the lowest amount of interest paid versus, say, a snowball strategy where you're attacking the lowest balance first. You can see the total interest paid here is a little bit more. But when we look at this, okay, in this scenario, it's going to take us $2,500 a month to have this paid off in 10 years. Well, if I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be in covered employment for public service loan forgiveness, and this information is what the roadmap that I can see and kind of the trajectory that I can see, in this case, you know, it's pretty clear that at least going down that PSLF route makes the most sense. And again, remove some of that burden of, well, I don't want to be locked into this. If an opportunity presents itself and I'm no longer part of that program, at least you're not penalized to do it. Over here, we have some private refinancing options. This was when interest rates were a little bit lower. I have a 5% interest rate set there. Private refinancing is a very good option if you're not going to be exploring public service loan forgiveness. However, right now with interest rates being higher, it's not a very attractive time to consider it because things like your repayment options become a lot more limited. The administrative forbearance options aren't as good as on the federal side. So there are a lot of drawbacks to private refinancing, and even more so with higher interest rates, where likely for the time being, even if you're not in PSLF, staying on the federal side, depending on what your interest rates are, is likely going to give you more flexibility and stability. But down the road, if interest rates come down, that would be something to look into. There's a lot of different private loan companies, to Jon's point, that want your business. And you have the ability to do what are called soft checks with these providers, where it doesn't ding your credit score, and they'll give you preliminary rates and refinancing options that are available to you. So that's something that you can always kind of keep your eye on if you're in that realm where maybe PSLF isn't going to be something that's applicable to you because you're in private practice. Keep that on the back burner. Right now might not be the best time, but it could be in the future. But again, the most important parts to kind of recap is to, really get organized, understand what student loans you have, and, work with a professional to help you develop that blueprint, or spend the time yourself, which, again, things are constantly kind of changing in this landscape. So making sure that you're staying on top of it is critically important.
Yep. And I would just echo Matt's comments. If most of you, if you have a couple $100,000 worth of debt, are going to be paying well in excess of $1,000 a month in interest to these providers, if you're not spending the time to call and say, hey, you're making a lot of money off the interest I'm paying you, help me understand this. That's generally where we tell people to start. And in addition to that, to Matt's point, there's really two strategies to tackle this. If you want to do it on your own, you're going to have to do a lot of research and work with the online calculators. The second option is to work with a professional like ourselves. You can see that we've already built out a lot of these spreadsheets to make it a little bit easier to digest. We're certainly available if that's something you're interested in. But asking questions is a really good starting point. Getting organized. Many of the medical professionals we work with, sometimes it's two medical professionals in one home. A lot of times it's one. Having a point person to help you get organized in your own household makes a lot of sense if you're busy in practice and can't commit the time to it. So there are ways to either have your financial advisor get access to your student loans, or a spouse through a delegation on with your provider, so they can call in on your behalf and ask questions and help you get to the bottom of the best way to manage these things. But
Yep.
we've dealt with clients with all different varying levels of debt, and there is a way out of this. What we always encourage people is to think, how much can we commit monthly, and how quickly do you want to get them paid off?
Yeah, but I just want to add one more thing on this that I didn't mention. But if you are in PSLF, and the whole goal there is to pay the least amount as possible, how they calculate those payments is based on your adjusted gross income. So a couple of things that, I call it right pocket, left pocket economics. I'm pulling this spreadsheet back up because there are some things that you can do that are saving for your future self that will directly impact and lower your payment. So with it being adjusted gross income, things like contributing to your employer sponsor plan, a 401k, will be a 403b on the nonprofit side, that dollar for dollar reduces your income, which is going to pull down your adjusted gross income and lower your income-based repayment. Another really good vehicle for those things to help do this is an HSA, a dependent care FSA, a healthcare FSA. All of these things lower your taxable income. So for example, we look at 2024 at 150, that payment in that first year that income is counted is 856. If you had, let's just call it 20,000 of those pre-tax savings, that knocks it down to 706. So, you're saving for your future self, but also lowering that payment by, in this case, $150 a month, which is $1,800 a year. By 10 years, that's about $18,000 over that 10-year period. So looking at considerations like this are all part of this blueprint that need to be taken into account as you're making these decisions.
we have any questions?
I don't think we have any questions, but this was great. Thank you guys so much for doing this.
No problem. And again, I
Thank you
believe
for having
Emma's
us.
going to send out some materials. We have a budgeting checklist, and also we've been doing this a long time. We have a medical professional checklist that's just really good housekeeping. If you start at the top and work to the bottom, whether you decide to gauge with an attorney, CPA, financial advisor, or do it on your own, it's just really good stuff to check off your list as you're getting out into practice. So thank you for your time. We look forward to continuing the series. We have a lot of topicals that we're going to cover. Our website's really good too, which will be shared, I'm sure, by Emma. So if we can be of service, please reach out individually. Thanks for your time. And I guess that's all we have for today.
Great. Thank you, Jon and Matt. We will be back for part 2 of this series on Thursday, May 16th, same time, and we'll be discussing investments and retirement planning for the new podiatrists.
Thank you. Have a good
guys so
Easter.
much.
Thank you.